Wysteria, energy, twister.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Korean Fairy Tales. This is called The Wild Cat Woman. Kim Soo-ik was a native of Seoul who matriculated in 1624 and graduated in 1630. In 1636, when the king made his escape to Namhan from the invading Manchu army, Kim Soo-ik accompanied him. He opposed any yielding to China or any treaty with them, but because his counsel was not received, he withdrew from public life. Tong Chung, so was a Chinaman of great note. He once desired to give himself up to study, and did not go out of his room for 3 years. During this time, a young man, one day, called on him, and while he stood waiting, said to himself, "It will rain today." Tong replied at once, "If you are not a fox, you are a wild cat. Out of this." The man at once ran away. Now he came to know this was from the words, "Birds that live in the trees know what the wind will blow. Beasts that live in the ground know when it's going to rain." The wild cat unconsciously told himself. The story. The former magistrate of Kwelpat, Kim Soo-ik, lived inside of the south gate of Seoul. When he was young, it was his habit to study Chinese daily until late at night. Once, when feeling hungry, he called for his wife to bring him something to eat. The wife replied, "We have nothing in the house except 7 or 8 chestnuts. Shall I roast these? I'll bring them to you." Kim replied, "Good, bring them." The servants were asleep, and there was no one on hand to answer a call. So the wife went to the kitchen, made a fire and cooked them herself. Kim waited, meanwhile, for her to come. After a little while, she brought them in a hand basket, cooked and ready served for him. Kim ate and enjoyed them much. Meanwhile, she sat before his desk and waited. Suddenly, the door opened, and another person entered. Kim raised his eyes to see, and there was the exact duplicate of his wife, with a basket in a hand and roasted chestnuts. As he looked at both of them beneath the light, the two women were perfect, facsimiles of each other. The two also looked back and forth in alarm, saying, "Who's this? What's this that's happened? Who are you?" Kim once again received the roasted nuts, laid them down, and then took firm hold of each woman. The first one by the right hand, the second by the left, holding fast till the break of day. At last the cocks crew, and the east began to lighten. The one whose right hand he had held said, "Why do you hold me so? It hurts. Let me go." She shook and tugged, but Kim held all the tighter. And a little after struggling, she fell to the floor and suddenly changed into a wild cat. Kim, in fear and surprise, let her go, and she made her escape through the door. What a pity that he did not make the beast fast for good and all. A note: foxes turning into women and deceiving people is told of in Kuang Kao and other Chinese novels, but the wild cat's transformation is more wonderful still, and something that's hardly heard of. By what law do creatures, little foxes and wild cats so change? I am unable to find any law that governs it. Some say that the fox carries a magic charm by which it does these magic things, but can this account for a wild cat? The next, the ill-fated priest. A certain scribe of Chungcheong province, whose name was Kim Kyong-jin, once told me the following story. Said he, "In the year 1640, and I was journeying past Bighorn Bridge in Taing County, I was a scholar who, with his 4 or 5 servants, had met with some accident, and all were reduced to a state of unconsciousness, lying by the riverside. I asked the reason for what had befallen them, and they at last said in reply, 'We were eating our noon meal by the side of the road, when a Buddhist priest came by, a proud, arrogant fellow who refused to bow or show any recognition of us. One of our servants, indignant on this, shouted at him. The priest, however, beat him with his stick, and when others went to help, he beat them also, so that they were completely worsted and unable to rise or walk. He then scolded the scholar, saying, "You did not reprehend your servants for their insult to me, so I have to take it out on you as well." The Buddhist gave him a number of vicious blows, so that he completely collapsed. And when I looked, there was the priest, a lyre to her head. Just then a military man, aged about 40 or so, came my way. He was poor in flesh and seemed to have no strength, riding a cadaverous pony. He came shuffling along, a boy accompanying him, carrying his hat over, and bow and arrows. He arrived at the stream, and, seeing the people in their plight, asked the cause. The officer was angry and said, "Yonder impudent priest, endowing no end of brute force, he has attacked my people and me." "Indeed," said the stranger, "I've been aware of him for a long time, and have decided to rid the earth of him, but I have never had the opportunity before. Now that I have at last come on him, I'm determined to have satisfaction." So he dismounted from his horse, tightened his girth, took his bow and arrow, and at a fist head had made off at a gallop after the priest. Soon he overtook him. Just as the priest looked back, the archer let fly with his arrow, which entered deep into the chest. He then dismounted, drew his sword, pierced the two hands of the priest, passed a string through them, tied him to his horse's tail, and came triumphantly back to where the scholar lay and said, "Now do with this fellow as you please. I am going." The scholar bowed before the archer, thanked him, asked him place of residence and name. He replied, "My home is the county of Ko-Chang," but he did not give his name. The scholar looked at the priest, and never before had he seen so powerful a giant. But now, with his chest shot through and his hands pierced, he was unable to speak. So they arose, made mincemeat of him, and went on their way, rejoicing. That's the end of that one, guys. Wow. These are really interesting. They're like nothing I've never heard of before, so I quite enjoy them, so I hope you enjoy them as well. And the next is The Vision of the Holy Man. Yi Chi Ham, Master to Zhang. A story is told of him that on the day after his wedding he went out with his topo, a ceremonial coat on, but came back later without it. On inquiry being made, it was found that he had torn it into pieces to serve as bandages for a sick child that he had met on his walk. Once a time he had an impression that his father-in-law's home was shortly to be overtaken by great disaster. He therefore took his wife and disappeared from the place. In the year following, for some political offence, the home was indeed wiped out and the family wholly destroyed. So Zhang was not only a prophet, but also a magician. As was shown by his handling of a boat. When he took to sea, the waters lay quiet before him, and all his path was peace. When he would be absent sometimes for a year or more, voyaging in many parts of the world, he practised fasting, and would go sometimes for months without eating. He also overcame thirst, and in the hot days of summer would avoid drinking. He stifled all pain and suffering, so that when he walked, and his feet were blistered, he paid no attention to it. While young he was a disciple of famous Taoist Sowadam. As his follower, he used to dress in grass cloth, the poor man's garb, wear straw shoes, and carry his bundle on his back. He wouldn't be on familiar terms with ministers of state, and yet show no indifference to their greatness and pomp. He was acquainted with various magic practices, so that in boating he used to hang out gourd cups at each corner of the boat. Thus equipped, he went many times to and from Quailpot, never met a wind. He did merchandising, made money, bought land which yielded several thousand bags of rice that he distributed among the poor. He lived in Seoul in a little dugout, so that his name became Mud Pavilion or Taeyong. His cap was made of metal, which he used to cook his food in, and which he then washed and put back on his head again. He used also to wear wooden shoes and ride on a pack saddle. He built a house for the poor in Asan country, where he was the magistrate there, gathered in all the needy, and had them turn to and work at whatever they had any skill, so that they lived and flourished. When anyone had no special ability, he had them weave straw shoes. He urged them on till the day they could make as many as 10 pairs. Yulgok said of him that he was a dreamer, not suitable for the matter-of-fact world, because he belonged to the realm of flowers and pretty birds, songs and sweet breezes, and not the common clay of corn and beef and radishes. Taeyong heard this and replied, "Though I am not of a kind equal to beans and corn, still I will rank with acorns and chestnuts. Why am I wholly useless?" So then we have Korea's record of famous men. Teacher Taeyong was once upon a time a merchant, and in his merchandising went as far as EC. One night he slept in a fishing village on the shore. At that time another stranger called, who was to be a I-in, or holy man, or I-in, holy man. The three met and talked till late night. The master of the house, the holy man, and Taeyong, it was very clear and beautifully calm. The holy man looked for a time out of the expanse of water, then suddenly gave a great start of terror and said, "An awful thing is about to happen." His companions, alarmed at his manner, asked him what he meant. He replied, "In 2 hours or so there will be a tidal wave that will engulf this whole village, utterly destroying everything. If you do not make haste to escape, all will be a fish in a net." Taeyong, being something of an astrologer himself, thought first to solve the mystery of this, but could arrive at no explanation. The owner of the house would not believe it, and refused to prepare for escape. The holy man said, however, "Even though you do not believe what I say, let us go for a little up the face of the rear mountain. If my words fail, we can only come down again, and no one will be worse for it. If you still do not wish to trust me, leave your goods and furniture just as they are, and let the people come away." Taeyong was greatly interested, though he could not understand it. The master, too, could no longer refuse his proposal, so he took his family and a few light things and followed the holy man up the hill. He had then ascended to the very top, in order, said he, to escape. Taeyong did not go to the top, but seated himself about halfway up. He asked the holy man if he would not be safe enough there. The holy man replied, "Others would never escape if they remained where you are, but you will simply get a fright and live through it." When cockcrow came, sure enough, the sea suddenly lifted its face, overflowed its banks. The waves came rolling up to the heavens, climbing the mountain sides till they touched the feet of Taeyong. The whole town on the seashore was engulfed. When daylight came, the waters receded. Taeyong bowed to the holy man and asked that he might become his disciple. The holy man, however, disclaimed any knowledge, saying that he had simply known it by accident. He was a man who did not speak of his own attainments. Taeyong asked for a place of residence, when he indicated as nearby, and then left. He went to seek him the following day, but the house was vacant, and there was no one there. The end. And that's the end of our next selection of Korean fairy tales. They are beautiful. I do like them. Thank you for listening, and many blessings.
Wysteria. Energy. Twister.